It is the basketball show for the basketball fan, now on the 1010XL wide world of podcasts. It's still the same open gym, though. RJ Saunders here with you. So glad that you guys are here with us. The NBA Summer League coming to a close. Going to have a couple of final games here today. Got the TBT still in full effect, $2 million on the line for a few teams that are still in that tournament. The USA still preparing for the Olympics. We have plenty to get into over the summer. And most importantly, thank you guys for being a part of the journey. Like, comment, and subscribe on the video as we continue to put out more fire basketball content for you guys. No longer on terrestrial radio, but here on the podcast side. So with Summer League being one of the bigger storylines here during the quiet time of the NBA season, without question, the biggest story has been that of Bronny James. And he's now a pro. He begins his journey in the association, playing in the California Classic for the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers then head to Vegas, and to put it mildly, he wasn't the best at the start. 3 points here, about 6 points here. Wasn't shooting great from beyond the arc, but he did crack double digits in back-to-back games, had a 12-point performance. I believe that was against the Cavs, and also had a 13-point performance. I believe that was against the Atlanta Hawks. I could be having both of those mixed up, but many had a lot to say about the son of a future Hall of Famer, being that of LeBron James. Jaylen Brown says, I don't think that he's a pro. Which, let's face it, a lot of scouts also believed that he isn't a pro. I think Marcus Spears pointed out that a couple of NBA scouts had said that he's a poor man's Davion Mitchell. He's a good shooter, but he's not a great shooter. He's a good defender, but he's not a great defender, which we've seen both in Summer League. Doug Gottlieb has yet to say a positive thing about Bronny, at least from what I have read and what I have seen and what I have heard from Doug Gottlieb. He said he wasn't a top 10 player in his own league in high school. Certainly wasn't the best player on his AAU team. And when it came to the college game, he wasn't the best guy on his team either. And if he was playing at the college that now Doug Gottlieb is coaching for, which is the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay, he would struggle to make a starting five. Now, on the flip side of all that, Rachel Nichols has come out and has said, listen, we are looking at this guy as if he is a top 10 pick, but he was selected at pick 55. And the expectation should be that he'll be playing G League basketball, which reportedly for Bronny, he's now open to. Let's underline, now open to. Is it fair that Bronny's being looked under the microscope like this? Rachel Nichols says it's not fair. But for us in the media, for us that are just hoop heads that sit down on bar stools and barber chairs, is it fair? Probably not. Reason being is because that Bronny James, he himself never spoke about his skill set and being an NBA player and saying that he would be great year one. That came from his representation being his father, as well as Rich Paul. Bronny, if you remember, LeBron James comes out with a tweet. I forget which team Bronny was playing, but he was still in college at this time. And he says, Bronny could play in the league right now, and he's better than a lot of guys that are playing in the league currently. That tweet exploded across social media. Bronny then turns around. He had a rough game. LeBron James is saying, whoa, this kid's 19. Let him be a kid. Let him continue to develop. Now, Bronny James has yet to say if I were picked by Team X or Y in the second round, I'll go play overseas. He did not say that. Rich Paul did say that, threatening teams that Australia will be a place if he's not selected by anyone other than the Lakers. Although they did not say that, it seemed to be, at least from the guys in which we had talked to, people such as Eric Pincus, Jonathan Von Tobel, those were two guys that were saying it seems like it's going to be Lakers or bust for a Bronny James, which then makes it harder for me to believe a guy like JJ Redick saying that he earned this spot. There's also a report now that Jeannie Buss was the person who elected to make the final decision as to who was going to be selected at pick 55. So this entire argument of him being a guy that was going to be selected, whether LeBron James was on the team or not, rather hard for me to believe. But what I'm seeing nowadays, and it seems to be more of a highlighted thing when it comes to fathers. They're blinded by love. And you'll have a lot of fathers who take the air out the room. I'll take you back a couple of years ago. Remember Lonzo's father, LeVar? LeVar took the air out of the room, to which Lonzo, LiAngelo, and LaMelo were all able just to be themselves, which is more of the quiet kid, similar to Bronny James. He's more of a quiet guy. He's really not boisterous and loud. But LeVar comes out and says, my son's going to be better than Steph Curry. My son is more of a Penny Hardaway type of a player rather than that of a Jason Kidd. But saying that this guy is going to be a generational talent once he gets to the NBA. And unfortunately, Lonzo had to play those games. LaMelo Ball had to play those games. And LaMelo's done great. He won Rookie of the Year. Lonzo, it seemed like his career was starting to brighten before now he's had these injuries, and we're wondering whether or not he can come back and play in the NBA with these knee issues and these ankle issues that he's having. But being a pro, like Jaylen Brown is saying for Bronny James, I think that's the question now. Nobody's questioning whether or not Bronny James can play the game of basketball. I think if you look at him just through the eye test, he understands the game. He has a high basketball IQ. And the same guys who he's trained with are the same guys that LeBron James is trained with, summer after summer after summer. But he's going to have to develop. And I haven't heard what the Lakers want to develop him as. If you want to develop this guy as a point guard, you need to now say that. This guy is 6'1", probably 215, 210, maybe. You're going to have to now develop this guy as a point guard. Something that wasn't asked of him, I'm sure, while he was playing AAU. Something that was not asked of him while he was at Sierra Canyon in high school. And I don't know how much that was going to be asked of him when he was playing at USC. Now, are you going to try to make this guy a 3-and-D guy? I'm about 6'1.5". Bronny James is 6'1". I think they're giving him. The average height, it feels to me, in the NBA now for smaller 3-and-D guys, about 6'4". That's about the starting height. You're looking at guys like Jalen Suggs from the Orlando Magic. You're looking at individuals such as Alex Caruso, who now plays with the Oklahoma City Thunder. You're also looking at individuals like Josh Hart from the New York Knicks, who's an absolute menace. And if you look at the smaller guys, such as Grand Theft Alvarado, better known as Jose Alvarado from the New Orleans Pelicans, he's 6'1", but he is a pest on the defensive end. Fred VanVleet from the Houston Rockets, he's a pest on the defensive end. Bronny James, again, from what the scouts have said, he's a good defender. He is not a great defender. The Lakers, who have become a disaster, still believe that they can compete for a title this year. I don't think you are going to know what Bronny is as a player if you're sitting him on the end of the bench and he's playing garbage time minutes. And I understand probably the first week of the new NBA season, we're probably going to see Bronny James and LeBron James play together on the floor. That's going to be something that's going to happen. That's going to be the photo op. That's going to be the top story on ESPN, Fox, wherever you consume your sports. That'll be the lead story. But if JJ Redick is saying that he is going to take a lot of time wanting to develop the young guys that they have on their roster, because that is where teams are going now, drafting players, developing them, and by a certain point, they're now seeing minutes. We're seeing this in Orlando. We've also seen this in Boston. You developed Jason Tatum. You developed Jaylen Brown. They end up winning you an NBA championship. Hopefully the same thing can happen with the Orlando Magic. You're seeing guys such as Jet Howard, Anthony Black, Tristan Da Silva. They did great in Vegas for the Summer League. You're also seeing individuals such as Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner take the next step in their careers, and those guys are probably going to be multiple-time All-Stars before their careers are said and done. I like what the Lakers have in Colin Castleton, Blake Henson. You also have Dalton Knecht, who I feel that you're going to continue to develop. Bronny James should be in that, and also Jalen Hood. Shafino should be in that mix to be guys in which you're developing so that they can get better year in and year out. So when guys like LeBron James leaves, ultimately Anthony Davis is going to leave and retire. And hopefully he retires as a Los Angeles Laker. We don't know that yet, but once those two guys leave and you're off of the contracts of the much older players that you brought into that organization, those young guys are going to be leading the pack. Fair or unfair, to answer Rachel Nichols' point, I think we expect much from Bronny James because of the whole process in which he went through and how it was handled by guys who spoke for him. The eye test says that he needs to be great in a lot of areas, not just good. Are the Lakers going to be put under pressure by LeBron James? I guess the consensus answer is going to be yes, that LeBron James and his camp are going to put pressure on the LA Lakers to make this guy a player in which they play not just in garbage time, not just to have sit at the end of the bench, but maybe in a few key moments. That has yet to be seen. That's just me speaking out of thin air here. But if I were the Los Angeles Lakers, if I were LeBron James, his father, if I were Bronny James myself, I think the best thing for him to do right now is to develop. I understand that there's going to be a lot of flack that a lot of people are going to get if you see this guy play in the G League year one. But he's not going to get better as a player overall, sitting at the end of the bench for a Los Angeles Lakers team who has LeBron James, who has Anthony Davis, a first-year head coach in JJ Redick, and saying that this is going to be the guy that is going to be one of the key pieces and key reasons why we win an NBA championship. He's not there yet. Can he get there? It's only his rookie year. We shall see. However, there is another team that was in Summer League and was absolutely sensational, and that was the Orlando Magic. That young group had a great season. The last season, it didn't end the way that they wanted to, but they have now brought in Tristan Da Silva, their top draft pick. They're also now continuing to develop Jet Howard as well as Anthony Black. Phillip Rossman-Reich is going to join us to speak more upon the Orlando Magic and the team, what they did this summer, and what we can expect next season here on Open Gym. Back here on the wide world of podcasts, here on 1010XL, it's the Open Gym. RJ Saunders here with you. Glad you guys are here with us. Joining me now is one of the purest basketball minds that you can ever come across. And also when it comes down to breaking down the Orlando Magic, this is one of the more pure guys that you are ever going to meet. That's Phillip Rossman-Reich. He is the senior writer at Orlando Magic Daily. He's also the host of Locked On Magic. Phillip, how are you, my friend?
I am doing good. Ready to get the first week without Summer League going here for us Magic fans.
Absolutely. And before we get to the Magic this summer, I wanted to be able to talk about the ending to last season. We weren't able to talk about it, you and I. It wasn't the ending in which we wanted. You were a half away from going into the second round, but Donovan Mitchell on one leg, Evan Mobley and Darius Garland lead the comeback and end Orlando's season. But tell me what you saw in that Game 7 and give me your feelings on how the year ended for the squad.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've tried to block out Game 7 as much as possible, but I think what we saw in that Game 7 was a team that's knocking on the door, but not quite ready to walk through it. The team showed really in that entire playoff series against Cleveland that they are a very good team, that they're a team that has arrived, that they're a team that everyone should consider a threat to make the second round, certainly a sure playoff team for the foreseeable future. We saw Paolo Banchero take such a huge step in that playoff series. He averaged 28 points per game, some obscene number like that. Right. His efficiency shot through the roof. Like he just thrived in that environment. But we also saw a team that still made a lot of the youthful mistakes that keep teams from advancing in the playoffs. We saw a team that had its flaws exposed, and especially in that Game 7, those flaws were exposed. They got the big lead in the first half, and then they just couldn't sustain that offense. They started turning the ball over. They gave up that quick run at the end of the second quarter. They didn't have a second guy who could score and complement what Paolo was doing. Paolo had to literally do everything that game. And, obviously a lot of people are kind of stewing over Franz Wagner and his performance in that game where he shot 1 for 15. Jalen Suggs, I think, was also 2 for 13. So you had two of the Magic's key core guys, I don't want to say not show up, but they didn't perform the way that the Magic needed them to perform. And so I think for this young Magic team, it was disappointing for sure because they felt like they were able to beat Cleveland and had every opportunity to beat Cleveland in advance. Right. But it was also a major learning lesson for them. And this is a team that I think absorbs those and looks ahead to the future now because they know this isn't the end of the road.
Now, we head into the summer, and there were guys on this team that you felt, as a fan, you wanted them to either be brought back or extended, I should say, like Franz Wagner was. But before getting to the beginning of free agency, it seemed like the fever dream was we're going to land Paul George or Klay Thompson's going to be that plan B because he'll fill a need with shooting. But you get KCP. You also get Corey Joseph, who I like because I feel that you're going to need a point guard who at times can initiate the offense, but also knock down wide open threes because let's face it, you're going to have Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner normally initiating that offense about 60% of the time. It wasn't the dream most fans may have thought in terms of acquiring a talent such as Paul George, but give me your feelings on the decisions that the Orlando Magic made this summer roster-wise.
Yeah, I obviously you have to explore everything, so you had to look into Paul George. You had to make a call if it made sense for your team. Klay Thompson, the same deal. You have to at least explore the idea and kick it around. But I think from a fan perspective, fans, especially Magic fans, when they think of big free agency, they think of the summer of 2000 when the Magic got Tracy McGrady and Grant Hill. Right. So with the kind of cap room the Magic had and the reputation the Magic began to build last year, I think everyone believed that, oh, this is what you do when you have a lot of cap room. You go after the big fish. But that's not really how Jeff Weltman operates. It's not that he won't go after the big fish when the time comes, but this didn't feel like the time. The Magic didn't want to disrupt the growth that they had in Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. So they went with a summer that was probably more similar to what the Magic experienced in 1994 when they signed Horace Grant. They went after a guy who is going to enter their starting lineup, is going to help their starting lineup and complement what they already have, and add that extra level of veteran mentality, championship experience, whatever you want to call it. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, certainly not the biggest name on the market, but the Magic got him on a fairly affordable deal, right. And he's someone that's going to enhance what they already have, and I think that's ultimately what the Magic were looking to do this summer.
Phillip Rossman-Reich, he's a senior writer at Orlando Magic Daily. He's also the host of Locked On Magic. I want to stay on KCP for a moment because for me personally speaking, I thought maybe keeping Joel Ingles would have been something that the Magic would have done, not for a sense that you want him on the floor, but a guy who could be that Udonis Haslem type of player. It seemed like that he could really grab the ear of the young guys, but you let him go and you're bringing in a two-time champion who was a key piece in both the Lakers championship run as well as the Denver Nuggets championship run. He brings a very good perimeter defensive skill set that I believe the Orlando Magic will definitely benefit from, and he also fills that need in perimeter shooting. What did you think when you first saw the report that the Orlando Magic acquired him?
Yeah, I mean, when the rumors started coming out that the Magic were interested in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, I felt like, unlike the Paul George and Klay Thompson rumors, was like that actually sounds like something the Magic would do. That, like, he very much feels like a Magic player. And, you know, I think my first initial thought was, well, this is the Magic getting a better version of Gary Harris. You know,
right.
He's someone that's he's not gonna be involved. You know, he's not gonna demand shots or take shots away from others. You know, he's gonna make threes. He's probably a little bit more reliable. He's certainly more reliable health-wise. He's played more than 70, 75 games, I think, in the last 5-6 seasons, or pretty much every season in his career. So to me, I felt like, okay, initially I thought, you know, if the Magic feel like what they did last year was successful, they're getting a better version of probably the weakest spot in their starting lineup, which would definitely be a plus. But as I dug into him a little bit more, it was like, oh no, he's really versatile in that he's a screen setter. Like, they would run pick and rolls with Nikola Jokic and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, where Jokic was the ball handler, and Caldwell-Pope would kind of float out and hit threes because there's so much attention on Jokic.
Right.
You know, the Magic could maybe do the same thing with Paolo Banchero. Obviously, you have the three-point shooting, but he's not just a standstill three-point shooter. He's
right.
a movement shooter, so that adds another element to the offense. And on top of that, he is one of the best defenders in the league. You know, he got 12 votes for the second team all-defensive team last year.
Right.
It was something that he was really pushing for and really wanted as well. This is a guy that takes pride in his defense. That is something this Magic team absolutely will love. And so while I think the Magic left some needs unaddressed that they probably will need to find and need to figure out how to fill, especially when they get in the playoffs, they, again, enhanced what they had. And I can't be upset with that. I think the Magic got better.
For you, in your opinion, because we're adding to the greatness of Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, and you want to add those pieces around them. However, you want to continue to see them develop and get better. In your opinion, what is the next step in their development?
The next step in their development is for Paolo Banchero, it's to decrease mistakes.
Okay.
You know, yeah, it averaged 7-8 assists per game, but also had 5 turnovers per game in the playoffs. And as a team, it's a young team. Young teams make mistakes; they turn the ball over. The Magic were, I think, they were bottom 10 in the league in turnover rate last year. So, right. I think people freak out over the Magic's offense, and they should. It was a bad offense, ostensibly. A lot of people focus on the three-point shooting and say that's where the team needs to improve their offense. And I would say, the three-point shooting's bad. It needs to get better. But the biggest thing is reducing turnovers. Like if you're not giving away possessions, if you're not leaving points on the board at the foul line, that's where this team has to get better. And so for Paolo specifically, I think efficiency is the next big thing. And some of that is having others set him up so he doesn't have to kind of attack on the ball so much, so he's not, self-creating so much,
right.
Which the Magic maybe didn't address as much this summer. But reducing his turnovers, making more free throws because he gets to the line so much, that's going to be the big ticket for him. And for Franz, he's got to get his three-point shooting back. The biggest element for him missing was just out of the blue, he just couldn't hit a shot last year.
Right.
He shot 35 and 36% his first 2 years from three. Last year he shot 28, 29% and was even worse in the playoffs. I think it was like 24% in the playoffs. The Magic need him to make threes. Like he has to be a reliable and confident three-point shooter. And that's essential for this team's success if he's going to be the number 2 guy.
Now, heading to the Summer League when it comes to the Orlando Magic, give me your thoughts on, Tristan da Silva, Jet Howard, Anthony Black, because I believe that these guys are going to get minutes and opportunity this season with the Orlando Magic. We were, continuing to harp on that they needed shooting, and I believe that Waltman, Anthony Parker, and the guys that you have in that front office do believe that a guy like Jet Howard can fill that need. Tristan da Silva looked absolutely smooth during his time in Vegas. Anthony Black could possibly be one of those backup point guards, or if they need a bigger guard to play defense, they probably feel that he can fill that role. What did you see from those three guys during their time in Vegas?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it on the head. Like, I think the Magic can exit Summer League saying all three of these guys are going to compete for minutes. Like, they're all capable and possible rotation players this season. And, I don't think we could have said that about Jet Howard last year. I get a lot of questions where, like, I'd get a lot of comments saying Jet Howard is bust. What are they doing? And I'd be like, no, the plan was to have him spend the year in the G League and then kind of see where he's at and have him build some of those skills. And really, Summer League put a lot of that talk to bed because he showed he got a lot better. Like, he was better in this year's Summer League than last year's Summer League. Obviously, that's not the NBA. There's still a step he has to take up, but his shooting looked really reliable. The shots, to me, the big thing is for all three players, the kind of shots they were taking and the kind of plays they were making are the same plays that they'll make when they get to the regular roster. They weren't doing anything, at least that I felt, was going to be too out of the ordinary from what we're going to see in the NBA. Like, maybe Jet Howard was working on the ball a little bit more than he will when he's in the NBA, but the Magic want everyone to do everything. Anthony Black, I think he's still got to learn the finer points of being a point guard. I think his tempo control was at times really good in his 2 games. Obviously, 2-game sample, we can't really go crazy, but his shot looks so much improved. Like, it's come a long way in a year. And Tristan da Silva I was just blown away by how Tristan da Silva just fit in wherever you needed him to fit in. Yes. And the ball found him. Like, everyone said this and was like, this is a guy that is just like, the ball just finds him and he just makes the right play. And you're like, oh, what does that mean? And you watch him play and you're like, oh, like, yeah, like he floats to the open spot. The ball gets to him. He makes the 3. It's really that simple. And that's going to be really valuable for this team. Like, I was blown away by how good Tristan da Silva was, and I think he's going to be a rotation player next year.
Phillip Rossman-Reich, he's a senior writer at Orlando Magic Daily, host of Locked On Magic. Final couple of moments with him. What are some realistic expectations that we should have with the Orlando Magic? I still believe that they're a top 5 team in the East, but my goodness, I mean, the Eastern Conference has gotten a lot better. You now have Paul George with the Philadelphia 76ers. Nobody thought that Mikal Bridges was available once we got to free agency. He's now with the New York Knicks. I don't think that you can count out the Milwaukee Bucks just yet. Cleveland's kept the same roster, but they do have a new coach. That's going to be something that's going to be interesting to see how that pans out throughout the regular season. But let me not also forget that you have the reigning defending world champions that are in the Eastern Conference in the Boston Celtics. But give me your way too early yet realistic expectations that Magic fans should have with this year's team.
Yeah, I think the Magic would tell you their goal is to be a top 4 seed. Like, they were obviously in a playoff series where home court advantage mattered. That no road team won in their 7-game series with the Cavs. And the Magic, I think, very much understood that they were the ones that cost themselves home court advantage. Entering the final week of the season, the Magic were second in the Eastern Conference. They lost to the Houston Rockets. They lost to the Milwaukee Bucks. They lost to the Philadelphia 76ers. Dropped down to 5 or 6 on the last day of the season. They needed a win in that last game of the season against Milwaukee to avoid the play-in. So I think honestly. So I think they understand how important home court advantage is. I think most fans would say the goal is to make it to the second round. Obviously, if you're looking to just find a marker for improvement, you lost in a Game 7. The way you improve is you win that Game 7 and advance the next season. I personally am a little less results focused in this sense.
Okay.
I think what the Magic, their goal should be is, yes, get better. But focus on yourself. Focus on your own race. If Paolo Banchero is playing better, if Franz Wagner's playing better, if Jalen Suggs plays better, if Jonathan Isaac plays better, if all your young guys that you're really invested in continue to take steps forward and grow, the record will take care of itself. The seeding will take care of itself. And then ultimately it's about, okay, how have you grown in the playoffs? And how have you grown in that setting in a new matchup? Because you're probably not going to face Cleveland again.
Right.
The Eastern Conference is going to be tough. I mentioned that the Magic beat the Milwaukee Bucks, they were the 5 seed. If they would have lost that game on the last day of the season, they would have been the 8. They wouldn't even won the division. They would have been the 8 going to Miami for playing games. the East is going to be exactly like that again this year. It's going to be rough and tumble every single game. And so, during exit interviews, a lot of the Magic players lamented that little losing streak they had in January when everybody was sick and hurt. There might be another 2-week stretch in the season where everybody is sick and hurt again, right, and they drop 4 of 6 or 4 of 5 or whatever it is. And that could be the reason why they're the 6th seed instead of the 5 seed this year. That's how tight and narrow the margins are going to be. And so for me, I think that the expectation is, let's make sure those young players that we care about continue to take steps forward in their careers and in their play and help us continue to understand what they need to be successful. But to me, I'm not looking necessarily at results as pegging how this team is doing and how this team is progressing. It's going to be narrow margins for this team. But the point is, the Magic are capable of beating anybody. The Magic could be the 2 seed very, very easily this year. They could be the 7 seed very, very easily this year.
Right. And
they could win that 2-7 series from either side of that ledger. This team is good enough to compete against anybody in the league.
Absolutely.
Boston may be the only team that is just heads and tails above anyone. Philadelphia is very health dependent, which, Paul George doesn't have a great health history. Joel Embiid obviously doesn't have a great health history. So they could end up being a 3 seed, but the second best team in the East again. It's going to be about focus on yourself, take care of your business, and then your business will take care of you. And then we'll see how the team looks in the playoffs, because that's ultimately where this team needs to grow.
All right, Phillip, before we let you go, tell us how we can continue to get a hold of you and the great work that you're doing with Locked On Magic and Orlando Magic Daily.
Yeah. Even though we're entering the very quiet part of the NBA offseason, we're still going to be going strong over at Locked On Magic. We'll be dropping down to 3 days a week here in August, but we'll be covering the Olympics. Obviously, Franz and Mo Wagner playing for Germany. We'll continue ruminating and thinking about what this upcoming season is going to be. And, of course, we'll have lots of great content on Orlando Magic Daily as well to help you get through this quiet time in the offseason. Absolutely.
He is Phillip Rossman-Reich. He is the senior writer at Orlando Magic Daily. He's also the host of Locked On Magic, our Orlando Magic Insider. We will have him throughout the course of the regular season as we continue to cover the Orlando Magic here at the Super Station. Phillip, thank you, and can't wait to do it again down the line.
Absolutely, man. Looking forward to it.
There he goes, Phillip Rossman-Reich. When we come back, was the Big Three in Miami bad for basketball? We'll talk about that next. Open Gym coming back to you on 1010XL, the wide world of podcasts. RJ Saunders here with you. Glad for you guys for staying on this inaugural episode of Open Gym on the podcast network. Thanks to Phillip Rossman-Reich for giving us insight to the Orlando Magic once again. Certainly a team that's going to be reckoned with once we get to the regular season. But in our final segment, I really want to do some deep dives into a lot that has been going on recently. I spoke about this with John O'Leary, and it was about Kawhi Leonard. This guy's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think he has less than 15,000 points. He may reach that, but less than 15,000 points to his name so far. He's a 2-time finals MVP, 2-time champion. But other than that, I really don't have a lot of memory of things that he's done in his career, a lot of moments in which he's had in his career, yet he's going to be first ballot. That's going to be interesting to kind of look at when his career is said and done and he ultimately is in Massachusetts at the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. But this whole Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, Chris Bosh angle that has now come back up and resurfaced via Dwayne Wade, via the podcast, 7 p.m. in Brooklyn, hosted by Carmelo Anthony, which is a great podcast. I would suggest that you guys listen to it if you love basketball. He does a great job there. But he talks about the Big Three Miami Heat team that consisted of he, Chris Bosh, and LeBron James. And here was a quote that he said in that podcast. Bron is an amazing player, but you have to work around him. Nobody wanted it. My team didn't want it. My family didn't want it. They were pissed. Bron's team didn't want it. No one wanted that to happen. The game of basketball didn't want it to happen. Now, At that time, Dwayne Wade, at least to me, felt like he was one of the better shooting guards in the league, also one of the better players in the league. But when it came specifically to the shooting guard position, he probably saw himself as the second best shooting guard behind Kobe at that time. And I believe he did an interview on SportsCenter where he talked about, I'm at a certain age and at a certain point in my career where I want to continue competing for championships. And after that 06 year, where the Miami Heat essentially had an Avengers team, Dwayne Wade and the Miami Heat really weren't making deep playoff runs at that point. Cleveland and LeBron James were, but not Dwayne Wade. And I believe he was trying to hold Pat Riley, Mickey Arison. I believe he was trying to hold their feet to the fire and say, listen, we need to start putting better talent around me as the premier player, or I'm going to have to find somewhere else to go. And I believe if he would have left, maybe he would have gone to Chicago, teamed up with Derrick Rose, who at the time was the rookie of the year. You had great role players there, such as Taj Gibson and Joakim Noah. Tom Thibodeau was manning the whole ship as the head coach. Defense was their calling card. And maybe he says, I'm the superstar in which they need as the secondary superstar to put this team in the conversation of winning an NBA championship. And we saw, even though he did not go there, and even though that LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade did team up, the Chicago Bulls weren't too far off from going to an NBA Finals. They just ran into the Miami Heat. And what I don't think people bring into mind when it comes to Dwayne Wade and his career, especially during that time, he sacrificed a lot of his game for LeBron James to be comfortable. Remember the quote he says, you have to work around LeBron. Number one. Number two, nobody wanted it. And it seems like there's this feeling that LeBron nearly convinced him that if you want to continue winning championships and I need to bring a championship to my resume, the best idea in doing this is probably teaming up. Because I think LeBron was getting towards that class of, he's a great player. Without question, he's a Hall of Fame player. You do have those Jordan stans or those Kobe stans, such as myself, who are going to say that he's not better than Jordan. He's not better than Kobe. Kobe had 5 rings at that point. Jordan already retired and out of the league, but he had 6 championship rings, never lost in an NBA Finals. LeBron James, here he was going into year 7, 8 at that point, still doesn't have a ring to his name. And I believe it was beginning to affect him. I believe that he felt, to his credit, and I don't credit LeBron James much, but to his credit, he was probably saying, listen, I've done everything that I can here in Cleveland, but those guys in the front office aren't really putting the requisite pieces around me in order for me to be successful. I think they tried going after Amari Stoudemire one year. I believe they wanted to go after Carlos Boozer, who was a one-time Cleveland Cavalier at one point in his career, but wasn't interested in going back to Cleveland. He was an all-star in Utah. Also felt maybe he could have a better situation in Chicago, which we saw later on in his career. Had to stop with the Lakers, but we don't talk about that. Other teams did the necessary things in order to put pieces around their star players, a la the Dallas Mavericks with Dirk Nowitzki. Although they let go of a point guard that was an all-star caliber player and a Hall of Famer in Steve Nash, the Dallas Mavericks were still poised. Before 2010, 2011, they were good for about 45-plus wins a season. The aforementioned Steve Nash, Mike D'Antoni and that system made the guys that they put around Steve Nash really, really good. Guys such as Amari Stoudemire, Jason Richardson, Channing Frye, Jared Dudley, others. Leandro Barbosa was also a guy that was always in the running for Sixth Man of the Year. They made deep playoff runs. The thing that always comes to my mind all the time, whether or not this was good or bad for the league, and listen, they made 4 straight NBA Finals trips. They won 2. Ryan Russillo has kind of put it like this. If you could get all the best players on one team, would you? If you were managing or owning a team? And I get that in theory, because I'll bring in like this, since we are the flagship station of the Jags, if we could get a guy like Brandon Ayuk or get the best players at their position on the offensive line, if we could bring all of them here to Jacksonville, we do that in a heartbeat. But those of us who sit in bar stools and barber chairs or sit here and do a podcast, and even other players that are in the NBA say, that's not how we equate, or that's not how we do things when it comes to your career, especially if you are a generational Hall of Fame talent. And LeBron James made the game mobile. Jordan made it global, but LeBron made it mobile. If you finish out your contract, you elect that you want to go somewhere else, you can do it. I believe that the thing was, a lot of individuals may have said, we're okay if he would have left and gone somewhere else. But he left and he teamed up with another top 5, top 10 guy in the league, and that was just something we had never seen before, because you didn't see it with Jordan. Jordan figured it out in Chicago. Isaiah Thomas figured it out in Detroit, lost year after year after year to teams like the Boston Celtics, lost to the Chicago Bulls eventually, but ends up figuring it out where they're able to beat the Los Angeles Lakers in an NBA Finals. They also beat the Portland Trail Blazers. They go back to back. We saw Kobe figure it out. Shaq goes away. Kobe had some downtime. However, 2008, 2009, 2010, 3 straight NBA Finals, wins 2, 1 being a back-to-back. LeBron James, I wonder if he would have stayed in Cleveland or if he would have went somewhere else. And let's say he would have won 1 championship somewhere else with a better roster. Does the story of LeBron James change in a lot of individuals' opinion? Now that, I don't know. If LeBron James doesn't do the whole team-up thing with Dwayne Wade, do we see Kevin Durant go to Golden State? Now, there are a lot of people that thought that Kevin Durant was going to go home to D.C. and play with the Washington Wizards. John Wall, Bradley Beal, that would have been a pretty scary team in the Eastern Conference. He says no to doing that, and he goes to an already made team who had won 73 games the year before. Granted, they have back-to-back championship wins, and there was also a mindset there, I believe, in the mind of Kevin Durant, that if I win a championship, I will be known as the better player in the league right now than LeBron James. Seems like it backfired on him, because a lot of guys said that they just don't buy it because you were a top 3 player in the league at that time. You now joined the best team in the NBA, and that's how you won your championship. And OKC at that time had guys like James Harden, who they elected not to pay. You had Russell Westbrook. I guess you felt that you and Russell as a tandem just didn't work, and that Russell Westbrook needed his own team, needed his own spot. It felt like it was more of his team because he was more of the vocal guy than a guy like Kevin Durant. I just want to play basketball. But getting off of that, I think the Miami Heat, the Heatles, as we called them, it brought a lot of drama to the NBA at that time. We always wanted to see them lose. It was heartbreaking to see them win, at least from my perspective. Was it good for the NBA? In a sense of, now we see so many guys teaming up together? Probably not. But if Kobe Bryant's taught us anything, the game's a cyclical game, and it always is going to come back to where its origin point is. And now we're seeing a lot more duos than we are seeing guys teaming up together. We saw it with Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo with the Milwaukee Bucks, but it almost feels to me that Dame even didn't want that to happen. He wanted to go to Miami, which, even though you have a star player such as Jimmy Butler, it's not on the level of you teaming up with a top 5 to 7 guy when healthy in Giannis. But look at all of the teams now, like we spoke in our first segment. A lot of these guys are developing their young players. These aren't guys that are saying, hey, let's team up and let's play together in Phoenix or play together in Boston or play together in LA. It seems like that's starting to die out. Paul George may have done it with Joel Embiid, but it seems that it's that older generation. That's the last bastion. The younger guys seem like they want to win things on their own because they saw a guy like Kobe, who many of these guys look up to, stay with one team and figure it out. Now, will it go back to a place where these guys begin to team up with one another? It may. But I don't believe that this was good for the game of basketball at all. It was fun during the time in which it happened, and it's crazy that it's already been over a decade since that's happened, and a decade since the Miami Heat, as the big three, were together. LeBron James would leave that 2014 year. But it's an interesting deep dive to think about. And also, if you watch the interview with Dwayne Wade and Carmelo Anthony, I don't want to say that D. Wade regrets it, but I think D. Wade is saying a lot without saying a lot. And the sacrifice that he had to make to his game, and still is probably going to be looked at as a top 3 shooting guard ever. I don't agree with him thinking that he was on the heels of Michael Jordan if the injuries weren't there. But the Miami Heat and that big 3 was a time in which I don't believe anybody's going to forget. And it's also a time that the NBA won't forget, because what LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade did changed the course of basketball forever. And that's going to do it for us here on the Open Gym. Big thank you to John O'Leary for recording all of this. We are going to try to do this either one day a week, or maybe this will be a bi-weekly thing in which we'll definitely talk about it. But we wanted to get one out the way. We had missed you guys and giving you this content here. So make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It is the Open Gym. I'm RJ Saunders. We will see you soon right here on the wide world of podcasts here on 1010XL.